Hey folks, and welcome to another video from A Plain Truth for You and Well Heeled Too. The only thing new in the world is the history you do not know. True that, man. I thought flat earth was going down a rabbit hole, but this Tartarian Empire, the United States and whatnot, San Francisco's exhibition, whole nother story in itself that we need to disclose and uncover and rediscover. The book to Jewel City is a book that was written in 1915. This is where I'm getting this information from. And I want to show you some pictures I took right out of the book because I couldn't find it, from the San Francisco exhibition that was in 1915. My previous video showed a possible directed energy attack to clear the way. But look at the size of this, 75 acres, 3 million board feet of lumber used, and the Palace of Fine Arts they had, the Palace of Education, Horticulture, Liberal Arts, Tower of Jewels, 47 stories tall, Festival Hall, Court of the Universe, Palace of Manufacturing, where Henry Ford made cars, varied industries, machinery, Mine State Building. Then they had the states had their own buildings. We had Oregon have their own buildings. We had New York State have their own building, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Hawaii, the Netherlands, Argentina Republic, Turkey, Italy, China, Denmark, Inside In, Japan, San Francisco Bay, Tower Ferry Building, and Fairmont are all in those pictures. And they're all laid out here in this incredible book from 1915 that tells the story of this incredible building of this structures that were supposedly built in 1915. And remember, once again, I just did a video on San Francisco and how the 1906 earthquake could have been a directed energy attack and could have possibly been used to clear the way for these exhibitions that were all over the country, Louisiana, Chicago, all New York City, all over in the late 1800s, with horse and buggies. Are you kidding me? Remember the 1849, the 49ers that supposedly came out west and started the whole Western parade? It's all just been a huge, huge pack of lies. And I found it fascinating. I mean, look at this. This is the views going across with these massive ponds. I mean, this was in San Francisco where Crissy Field is next to Presidio on the way in past the Golden Gate. They started it, 1906 earthquake. They began construction in 1913, 1915. They had the fair in 1916, 1970. They destroyed it. 47 stories, crown of jewels. Look at these porticos. Look at these big, huge arches. And here's a picture from this book by Ben Macomber. And you can see these entrances to the Court of the Universe. Extremely well laid out with the arches on both ends. And then you have, this is the horticulture building, the palace. They were building palaces, folks, and then they destroyed it, according to their story, when in fact, it's all likelihood this was the Tartarian Empire that they just co-opted, took over, changed the narrative. This is the Palace of Machinery where Henry Ford produced industrial cars and popped them out. I mean, these structures were massive, and there were many of them. And then they were also from all over the world, as I said. You know, this is the portal from the Spanish 19th century replicas. They sent them from all over the world. This was New York State. I mean, how did they erect these huge columns? Where did they get all the materials? I keep going back to how they could have done this. And then we get to New York City. I mean, take a look at New York City back in 1911. Now, remember what we're showing, I just showed you, was 1915, same time period. They had streetcars running on lines. Notice how clean all the pavement is. Poor guy walking with one leg, but you can see the structures are already in place. The streets are already well curbed. I mean, and clean. I mean, the cleanliness. How did they keep everything so clean? And people were walking by foot, and they had some cars, and they had some horse and buggies. But where did they put everybody? How did everybody get around? How did they build these massive buildings if from 1776 and then the War of 1812 and the Civil War and all that and Reconstruction and coming out with Lincoln supporting the move from the Great Move out west with a strike at Promissory Point in Utah where they connected the railroad so they could get out west? Yet New York was already in this grandiose design using horse and buggies and having streets that were just so well manicured, and these railways that were elevated to hold these trains. How much support would be needed to hold these trains? What kind of construction? Look how everybody's well dressed. All the textile, everybody's in hats and coats and suits and elegant dresses and whatnot. They were very well to do. Everybody was in the same. Look at the electricity power they had running the railways back then and building these massive bridges of stone. Where did they get all the stone? It just doesn't make sense unless it was already there. And then again, this book I just got, New York 1880, Architecture and Urbanism in the Gilded Age. And again, look at these massive buildings. Are you kidding me? Horse and buggy built these. Look at the cathedrals. And again, we went through the energy devices that were in some of these cathedrals. Grace Cathedral, St. Paul's Cathedral, all of these, the post offices and whatnot. I mean, it's just beyond the pale that has taken us this long. We've been lied to. Here's Business Insider showing 50 New York buildings that no longer exist. I mean, check these out. This is Madison Square Garden. There's another picture, much more elaborate. The Knickerbocker Trust. It was completed in 1903 and destroyed in 1921, so bigger things can be built. Bigger than this? I mean, is this architecture anywhere around today? Again, this was built from 1905 and then destroyed in the Hippodrome. Again, this is 1883. This was erected with horse and buggy days. Horse and buggy days? Come on. Look at this. The Hotel Astor, 1904 on 44th Street, and then destroyed. All these buildings were destroyed. This was the Tartarian, the grandiose of the Tartarian Empire. And we can get into more. I'll get into more about the history of it all. But the Singer Building, Lower Manhattan. Look at how tall this was. How many stories do you count here, folks? How many stories was the Singer sewing machine? Demolished in 1968. Ritz-Carlton, 1917. Destroyed in 1951. 1890. Destroyed in 1955. Look at that. It's absolutely incredible. 1908, destroyed in 1968. New York City, horse and buggies? No. Tartarians, folks. These were the Tartarians and their great structure. How did they build all these structures? How elaborate, how beautiful it was. Where did all the people go? Where did the history go? Why, again, is it in Wikipedia about Tartarians and their empire? In Wikipedia, but it's not included in the history books, in our school books. We're just learning about it now. Why? It's not what we learn, it's what we're not being taught. Flat Earth, directed energy weapons, Tartarian Empire. It was destroyed in 1910, replaced by a bigger building, the Gillender Building. Look at the structures in New York City. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm just incredulous of all the designs, and we see it all across the world. The mass destruction of the Tartarian Empire. It looks between the 1850s now to 1950s. They wanted very few traces. They left them in Europe, but they sure destroyed the traces of the New York Empire. Get it? New York Empire? The Tartarian Empire is what it was. It wasn't purchased from the Indians with some clamshells and beads and stuff. Oh my God. The buying of Manhattan, the Washington Building. I mean, this goes on and on. I'll put this all in the show notes, but I mean, just goes on and on. Built in 1875, burned down in 1890. That burned down, structure would still be there. How did they take it down if it burned? How did they destroy it down to rubble? What kind of cranes did they have? What kind of equipment did they have to do that? 1927, torn down in 1964. What did they use? Did they have building inspectors? Did they have great architects? Who designed these? I mean, today, the architectural, you got to go through so many design reviews and everything, and still things don't stand up. But look at this, 1881, these buildings. Great American Insurance Building, 1908, demolished in 1971. Look at these buildings, folks. They're amazing. Equitable Building, 1870, destroyed in 1912. Wolf Building, 1895, erected, destroyed in 1974. I mean, we need to rewrite history. This is rewriting history. India House. Look at the clocks at the top. Look at how beautiful the designs are. The ornate. Here's the Wi-Fi. Look at how high the telegraph lines are. Look at how high they are. And that was in 1885, the original Penn Station. This is glorious. Look at the structures. Look at the buttresses, the flying buttresses. Look at the lighting up here. See the lighting up here? 1910, they had that kind of lighting. Post office opened in 1871. Demolished in the World's Fair in 1939. Look at these structures. Tartarians. All Tartarians. I mean, I can just keep going, but look at the concrete on the streets. Look at how big those sections are. Look at how they have steps up where you had the mud flood that came in down below. This building was replaced by a new building in 1902. It was the old courthouse and police station. And again, we see the antennas going up at the top. Those aren't lightning rods, folks. Those of you who are saying they're lightning rods, give me a break. Biltmore, 1913, closed in 1981. American Exchange National Bank, 1862, destroyed. Look at that structure. Amazing architecture. Can we build anything like that today? Where did they get all the stones? Where did they quarry them from? How did they deliver them? All the lumber and everything. Look at the wire communications. Look at all the communication devices. This is just New York City. This is just Manhattan I'm showing. 1897, destroyed. I mean, oh, Horse and Buggy Days built this. Yeah. Where was all the cranes? Look at how tall the doors were to allow the giants, the Tartarian giants to go in. We see it over and over. These massive door structures and the entrances. Big, huge doors. Church of the Disciples. Look at, here's the magnetrons. Here's the energy devices I went over the other day. Notice the twin towers here. That's a very common theme. Now, is that the vibrational frequencies they use for energy, just like sound healing? Temple, oh, this is also in San Francisco. They have these Temple Bethel. So they had these temples all across the country, built in 1891. Look at these structures and the water systems they had. 1882. Charles Schwab, steel magnate, 75-room mansion. This was his house. 1905, 75 rooms. How did they heat it? Look at all the communication devices. Charles Schwab will protect your investments. Let's look at this. It's unbelievable. And see, they don't show the light posts here. See over here on the left, they don't show how it's being lit. They had electricity. They are running electricity underground. Look at how clean everything is. Where's all the people? Look at the streets. How clean everything is. Look at the concrete. Look at the devices on top of the roofs. How did they get up there? They destroyed the Tartarians. Likely with directed energy weapons that they stole from them. The Tartarians were using it for benevolency. Now the Maleficents, the Romanovs, the Jesuits, the Vatican, we got to destroy you all. We're going to destroy your traces of your history. We're going to write history over. I'm going to cover that with the Salagarian Jesuits who rewrote the history in the next video. Navarro Flats, 1882. I mean, this just keeps going. The Waldorf Astoria. 1897 they built this. Are you kidding me? 1878. Hotels of New York. The Park Avenue Hotel. Again, streets are clean. Where are the people? I mean, we're not seeing people in any of these. There's a drawing, but the photographs, there's very few people on the streets. There's one guy. Well, where's all the people in these buildings? I mean, these were all destroyed. 1894. This is just New York City. I keep repeating myself, but it's incredulous. The Victory Arch. Well, what do we see? The Arc de Triomphe, the Victory Arch. This is them coming in here. This looks similar to France. It's all the same construction, all the same design. So thanks to the website stolenhistory.org, I'm just going through all the fires that have occurred throughout history. This is Wikipedia, list of fires. And the whole story about the Tartarian Empire and the history starting in 1200 AD and beginning, again, proves more relevance as we see starting in 1200, the sack of Constantinople, the fires, the great fires in London. So is this the extermination of the Tartarian Empire beginning in Germany, the Netherlands, Germany, and then Munich and Bern, Switzerland again, Amsterdam again, and then we see the Great Moscow Fires in 1547 and 1571. And then we can see the Stockholm Fires, and here's these fires going, the Great Fire of London, 1666. You get that one, folks? Jamestown, Virginia, 1676, fires. But what I wanted to focus on, well, let's keep going. We got the 18th century, the Great Boston Fire of 1711, Copenhagen Fire, 1728. And if you look at most of these, I'm not going to get into the Great Fire of Tartu. Remember Tartarian Empire? And here we see the Great Fire in 1775, and this is when the Pugachev Rebellion, they called it, started from 1773 to 1776. This is why 1776 is such a big number, because they used it to the founding of the United States of America in 1776 to mask the extermination of the Tartarian Empire, it would seem, and we're seeing more and more evidence of this. And here we can see New York being destroyed. 1776, the Great Fire destroyed 10 to 25% of the buildings in the city. You see how big the buildings were. Horse and buggy days, remember? So apparently the Revolutionary War started, and then there was the 1776 Great Fires, and also down in the South during the Civil War, we saw the Great Fires and those structures, massive structures, being torched again, very similar to do weapons. But what I want to focus on is this website, which is a very excellent website we're going to get in. Again, Great Fires 1866, the Great Fire of Portland, Maine. And this website, stolenhistory.org, has done a great job of breaking this down, and we're going to get into it a little bit. So they're calling these firestorms, firestorms, and here still today, firestorms, and we get winds above 10 to 20 miles an hour out here in Sonoma, Napa, Mendocino counties, up on the ridges, 10 to 20 miles an hour. They're shutting off the power because of fire dangers. See where this is going? So they say a firestorm is capable of destroying brick buildings. I have my doubts, no doubt. In the list of town and city fires we just showed you, through the span of investigation should be the 1850s to the 1910s, because this is when a lot of the great destruction of the Tartarian Empire seems to have occurred. So the Great Boston Fire of 1872 was ranked as one of the most costly and largest property losses in history. And the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Remember everything that's happening in 1871? Remember 1871 is when the USA Corporation called Washington, D.C. was created, with the Organic Act of February 21st, 1871. You had the Napoleon Wars. You had so much going on in 1871. It was just mass destruction and then mass cover-up and mass lies. And this is why we're doing the revisionist history, alternative history to what we've been sold and told. The Great Chicago Fire of 1871. We're going to go through these pictures in a minute. The Great Seattle Fire of 1889. The Great Fire 1866, the Great Portland, Maine Fire, all similar structures. And then I covered the earthquake, the San Francisco supposedly, quote, earthquake, which looks like another directed energy attack. And then also you can check here in Wikipedia, the Great Toronto Fire 1904, 1809, 1877, Baltimore, Jacksonville. I mean, look at the destruction of the Tartarian Empire being chronicled here. So let's take a look at some of these pictures. And I'm just going to go in order. This is Dresden. Oh, let me go back to here, because I wanted to show you the similarities that he covers as well in this. It's very comprehensive. So Kurt Vonnegut's book, Slaughterhouse 5, and also this book, Hellstorm, The Death of Nazi Germany, are must-reads to understand what the, quote, Allies did to these people after the war, and how they murdered millions of people, and how they sent them back to Uncle Joe Stalin, millions of people in sealed boxcars that had fled from Azerbaijan and Ukraine down to Germany to flee the tens to 20 millions of people that were starved out of Russia. You want to talk about a Holocaust? Look at what happened to Russia. We don't bring that up. It's all the Jews in Germany, and you can't talk about it. But Russia was much worse when they purged all the czars and all the Tartarian Empire, but they don't want us to know that. It's what they don't want us to know is what we need to discover and uncover. But you need to get into this book. So, again, the story goes that there were 4 raids between the war was ending. They were already defeated and stuff. They just wanted to bomb the crap out of them. 3,900 tons of high explosive bombs. Right. No, these were directed energy weapons, as we're going to see. Berlin, the same thing. They bombed the crap out of them, or they hit them with directed energy weapons. And also near Hiroshima, Nagasaki. This is why I make the case that there was no nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because, one, they look just like the carpet bombing, as we'll see in a minute, of Tokyo that General Bombamal LeMay used to fire incendiary devices to kill 100,000 people in one carpet bomb in Tokyo. Same exact profiles, and there's no radiation. Remember the half shelf life supposed to increase by its time we're 75, 80 years on, Hiroshima, Nagasaki? Normal. I think Obama went there a couple years ago as well. So are you kidding me? And then Tokyo, Fukuoka, Yamaguchi, Hamamatsu, all these carpet bombings could actually have been directed energy devices. So let's take a look at these pictures and go through them. So here's Dresden, and you can see, I mean, these aren't fires, folks. I mean, it could be bombings, yes, but look at the destruction, but look at the buildings they left intact. This was targeted. And you see all the windows blown out, which could be evidence of, but just going through these pictures, I mean, how did they leave these statues and destroy everything else? I mean, Dresden was a culture of absolute beauty. And look at this. So see some of the destruction going on here, but these weren't caused by fires. There aren't fires going up concrete. And how did they build these buildings? And look at the rubble here. I mean, this was absolute destruction like we're seeing everywhere. And here we see the rail cars in Dresden. You know, how did they have all the rail cars and then the statues? Isn't this an amazing picture, folks? I mean, this looks just like what we saw in Paradise, just like what we saw in Malibu, just like we saw in Santa Rosa, homes torched out in the middle. Is this prima facie evidence that they've had directed energy devices? Look at the gas lights. Look at the lighting they had. Look at how tall these structures are. Look at the antennas where they had the Wi-Fi, further confirming that there was an advanced technology before the Romans got here, the Romanovs that broke away from the Tartarians, and they came down and changed the history from the 12th century on with Constantine and Constantinople and everything. Look at how wide the streets were. Look at how tall the buildings were. And you can see the telephone wires going everywhere. They had communications. Well, this is 1945, but this is still Dresden. And then I think we start getting into Tokyo. Here's Hiroshima after the bomb, right? Does that look like a bomb? Does that look like directed energy? It certainly doesn't look like, I mean, it looks like they were carpet bombed, or it could have been directed energy, but these, you know, here's some singeing at the top here and whatnot, but here are the trees still left. How could that be? And here's the dome being taken out and everything just completely leveled. So this is, again, is Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and just leveled, just like we saw in the San Francisco earthquakes, quote, earthquake, just like we're seeing today. Elimination, but sparing. Look at, they spared the bridges. They spared these buildings, right? Telephone poles are still up. I mean, it was targeted bombing, specific or directed energy weapons that were used to obliterate this. This is the air raid after Osaka. You know, and again, we're seeing buildings that were left intact and buildings that were destroyed. Now let's compare that time period, that was World War II, to the time period 1872, and this is the Great Boston Fire. Again, we see the street poles here. There's 1872, they got communication devices, they got gas lights and whatnot. But the buildings were destroyed from the top down. This was not fires coming up and gutting the wooden roofs and whatnot. This was absolute destruction. I mean, look at this. This is Boston, the home of liberty, and this is where they had the shelter in place, where two kids, 19-year-old kids in pressure cookers after the Boston bombing got everybody to get into the term shelter in place. I mean, look at the absolute destruction. And they're gonna tell us this was caused by fires? Are you kidding me? How many people died, folks? Oh, we don't do body counts. We call them collateral damage. Look at these structures, how elaborate they were, the details of these buildings. Absolutely incredible. And it goes on and on. So again, this is the Chicago fire, the Great Chicago Fire, that Miss O'Leary's cow knocked over in the barn and started this fire, da-da-da-da. God, we're so stupid. Look at these columns here, folks. Look at how they're fitted to put one on top of the other. How did they lift those up? And then look at this. Doesn't that look like 9/11? Let me get that in a little more. Look at this column right here. Doesn't that look like the same shearing that went on with the 9/11 buildings and the Twin Towers as well? I mean, coincidence or same type of devices used? And again, you know, we've had this free energy for a long time. And again, they're saying it was horse and buggy days. So how did they put these up? Look at the advanced telephone wires, 1871, communications devices. I mean, are you kidding me? How did all the cars move? Look at how tall these towers were. I mean, destruction. after destruction. Elimination of an empire. 1850s to 1920s, it appears. They eliminated the Tartarians and left the ones they want. This is the Seattle fire. I mean, Seattle was developed. And here you see the destruction. Over and over again. A few more pictures here. Look at that. That's the San Francisco earthquake, apparently. But they left the big buildings, and the trees are still there. Covered that in the previous video. Did they clear it? Look, and the people walking the streets, again, horse and buggy built these buildings? Not. Makes no sense whatever that they could have built these with horse and buggy days. It was advanced technology, folks. And here you see again the massive temple dome buildings of the Tartarian Empire. This looks like a light or a fire going up on here. And then see the guy with the horses. Where's all the horse stables? Where's all the food being grown for the horses in the cities to feed them? I mean, that's what we're not seeing is where did they come from? All right, that's all I got for now. Part 2, I'll get into the whole USA Pugachev rebellion and the cover-up of that story. But again, the magnificence of their designs all around the world, the Tartarian Empire, that was the land of plenty, where you just gave, one of the main rules was you gave back to the land what you took away from. Imagine that. But their culture was elegant. It was beneficial to humanity. It was serving mankind and reverence for nature that gives us all life. But as we can see from these pictures here, it's all been hidden, occulted, and many of it destroyed. As we see, their story doesn't hold up. The Western Roman Latin story. Why are we still under Roman Latin law? What does the word Latin even mean? No one can even tell you. No one even knows the date Washington, D.C. was founded, 1871. And they were also, the Tartarians were flat earthers. Another reason to embrace the flat earth concept that we're the center of all creation. Not just one of billions and billions in the corner of an insignificant universe expanding at the speed of light. No, all the creation is for enlightenment. Time to wake up, all. Thanks for listening. Plain Truth out. Peace and love one another always. Because if we don't love one another, if we don't look at each other in the eye and say, Namaste, the light in you is the light in me, where does that leave us? In a capitalist system capitalizing with those that make the rules, the rulers make the rules, and we obey them, and we talk about them we see on a screen with their politics, their many ticks. All right, that's what we do. But it all defaults to legalese. So we must write our own, become the author of our own authorities. All right, Plain Truth out. Tag, you're it. Love one another. Peace always. Bye.